The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the royal palace as Captain Juno walked through the grand hallway. His heavy boots echoed against the polished stone walls decorated with paintings of human victories across the galaxy. Today felt different from other days. The guards at every door stood straighter than usual. The servants moved with quiet urgency. Something important was about to happen. Juno had received the royal summons 3 hours ago while he was cleaning his plasma rifle in the military quarters. The message was simple but carried the weight of authority. King Timon wanted to see him immediately in the throne room. No explanation was given, no hint about the purpose of this meeting. Just a direct order that could not be ignored. As he approached the massive doors to the throne room, Juno remembered the last time he had been called before the king. That was 2 years ago when he had successfully eliminated the rogue AI that had taken control of the mining station on Europa 7. The king had praised his work and promoted him to the rank of captain, but this time felt different. The air itself seemed heavy with unspoken danger. The throne room doors opened with a deep mechanical sound. Inside, the chamber was enormous. Tall windows lined the walls, allowing streams of sunlight to illuminate the space. At the far end of the room sat King Timon on his throne made of black metal and blue crystal. The king was not alone. Several advisors stood beside him, their faces showing worry and fear. Juno walked across the long floor toward the throne. Each step seemed to take forever. The king watched him approach with serious eyes. King Timon was a man in his 50s with gray hair and scars on his face from his younger days as a soldier. He had ruled the kingdom of Taros for 20 years and had never backed down from any threat. "Captain Juno," the king said in his deep voice that filled the entire room, "you have served our people well for many years. Your skills as a hunter have saved countless lives across our colonies." Juno stopped 10 feet from the throne and bowed his head respectfully. "Your Majesty honors me with his words. Today I have a task for you that is more dangerous than anything you have faced before." The king continued, "The ancient dragon Yura has struck again. 3 days ago she attacked our supply convoy heading to the Outer Rim colonies. 50 people died. The entire shipment of medical supplies was destroyed." One of the advisors, a thin man named Kwan, stepped forward. "Captain, this dragon has been terrorizing our people for 30 years. She appears without warning, destroys everything in her path, and disappears into the void of space. Our military forces cannot match her speed or power." Juno had heard stories about Yura since he was a child. The ancient dragon was said to be larger than a battleship, with scales that could deflect plasma cannon fire. Some claim she was older than human civilization itself, a survivor from the great wars that had destroyed entire star systems centuries ago. "What do you need me to do, Your Majesty?" Juno asked, though he already suspected the answer. King Timon leaned forward in his throne. "I need you to hunt her down and kill her. You are the only person in our kingdom with the skills and experience to face such a creature. Your knowledge of alien biology and your proven ability to adapt to any situation make you our best hope." Another advisor, a woman named Yunji, moved closer to the throne. "Captain, we have spent months studying the dragon's attack patterns. We believe she has made her home in the Crimson Peaks on the northern continent of this planet. The area is dangerous, with extreme weather and hostile native species. But our sensors have detected massive energy signatures in that region." Juno thought about the mission. Hunting a dragon was far different from his previous assignments. He had faced dangerous aliens before, but never anything as powerful as Yura. Still, he had never failed a mission, and he would not start now. "I accept the assignment, Your Majesty," he said firmly. "But I will need proper equipment and support." The king smiled for the first time during their meeting. "Of course. We have prepared everything you might need. Your plasma rifle has been upgraded with dragon-piercing rounds. Your armor has been enhanced with adaptive plating that can adjust to different types of attacks. You will also have the support of tech specialist Minho, who has studied the dragon's energy patterns for years. As if summoned by his name, Minho entered the throne room carrying a large case filled with equipment. He was a young man with quick hands and intelligent eyes. Juno had worked with him before on several missions and trusted his technical skills. Completely. "Captain," Minho said as he approached, "I have prepared detailed scans of the Crimson Peaks region. The dragon's energy signature is strongest near the crystal caves in the highest mountains. The journey will take us through some of the most dangerous territory on the planet." King Timon stood from his throne, signaling that the meeting was reaching its conclusion. "Captain Juno, the fate of our colonies depends on your success. If the dragon is not stopped, she will continue to attack our people. Eventually, she may strike at our core worlds. We cannot allow that to happen." Juno understood the weight of responsibility being placed on his shoulders. Thousands of lives depended on his ability to track down and eliminate this ancient threat. He had spent his entire adult life protecting human colonies from dangerous aliens, but this mission would test every skill he had learned. "I will not fail, Your Majesty," he said with complete confidence. "The dragon will be stopped," the king nodded approvingly. "Good, you leave at dawn tomorrow. May the stars guide you safely through this dangerous hunt." As Juno left the throne room with Minho beside him, he could not shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. Something about hunting an ancient dragon felt different from his previous assignments. But he pushed those thoughts aside. He had a job to do, and failure was not an option. The hunt for Yura would begin at sunrise. The hover scout moved silently through the alien landscape as the twin suns began their slow descent toward the horizon. Captain Juno sat in the pilot seat, his eyes scanning the strange terrain ahead. Beside him, Minho worked on his computer tablet, checking their route and monitoring the energy readings from the dragon's last known location. 3 days had passed since they left the royal palace. The journey to the northern continent had been long and difficult. They had crossed 2 oceans and flown over mountains that reached toward the sky like massive stone fingers. Now they were finally approaching the Crimson Peaks, where the ancient dragon Yura was believed to be hiding. The landscape below them was unlike anything on the human homeworld. Red rocks jutted from the ground at odd angles, creating a maze of canyons and valleys. Strange plants with silver leaves grew in clusters, moving gently in the wind despite their metallic appearance. In the distance, tall crystal formations caught the light from the twin suns and threw rainbows across the rocky ground. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Minho said, looking up from his tablet. "We should reach the outer boundary of her territory within the hour." Juno nodded but kept his attention on flying the hover scout. The vehicle was designed for stealth and speed, perfect for hunting dangerous creatures. Its engines made almost no sound, and its hull could change color to match the surroundings. Still, he knew that an ancient dragon would have senses far beyond those of normal creatures. As they flew deeper into the alien territory, the landscape began to change. The red rocks became darker, almost black in some places. The crystal formations grew larger and more numerous. Some of them sang in the wind, creating haunting melodies that seemed to come from another world entirely. "Captain," Minho said suddenly, pointing toward a valley below them, "I'm detecting movement down there, large life forms." Juno brought the hover scout to a stop and activated the scanning system. On the main screen, he could see several figures moving through the valley. They were tall and thin, with long arms and pale skin. They moved in a group, walking with purpose toward the mountains ahead. "Those must be the Kian people," Juno said. "The intelligence reports mentioned that they live in this region." The Kian were one of the native species of the planet. They had been living here long before humans arrived to establish their colonies. Most of them were peaceful, but they rarely interacted with human settlements. This was the first time Juno had seen them in person. "Should we make contact?" Minho asked. Juno considered the question. Their mission was to find and eliminate the dragon, not to study local aliens. But the Kian had been living in this area for generations. They might have useful information about Yura's behavior and location. Yes, he decided. We'll land and try to communicate with them. They might know something that could help us. The hover scout descended quietly into the valley. As they approached the ground, the Kian people stopped moving and turned to look at the human vehicle. They did not seem frightened, but they watched with careful attention as Juno and Minho stepped out of the craft. The leader of the Kian group was an elderly female with silver markings on her face and arms. She wore robes made from the same metallic plants that grew throughout the region. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried clearly across the valley. "Humans," she said in accented but understandable human standard language. "You have come to hunt the Great One." Juno was surprised that she knew their language and their purpose. "My name is Captain Juno. This is Minho. We are indeed searching for the dragon called Yura." The Kian leader studied them with large, dark eyes. "I am Nari, elder of the Western Kian. We have watched your people for many years. We know why you are here." "Then you know we must find her," Juno said. "She has killed many of our people." Nari's expression became sad. "The Great One is not what you think she is. She is not a simple beast that kills for pleasure. She is old, older than your entire species. She remembers when the stars themselves were young." Minho stepped forward, his tablet ready to record the conversation. "What do you mean?" "What do you know about her?" "The Great One speaks the old tongue," Nari explained. "She knows the languages of many worlds, many peoples who no longer exist. She is the keeper of memories, the guardian of knowledge that would otherwise be lost forever." Juno felt a strange unease at these words. His mission briefing had described Yura as a dangerous predator, a threat to human civilization. But the Kian elder was describing something very different. "If she is so wise," Juno said, "why does she attack our convoys? Why does she kill our people?" Nari looked toward the mountains where the crystal formations sang their haunting songs. "The Great One is dying. The old wounds from the ancient wars still burn within her. She grows desperate, and desperate creatures do desperate things." "What ancient wars?" Minho asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. "Before your people came to this sector of the galaxy, there was a great conflict," Nari said. "Entire civilizations were destroyed. Planets were turned to ash. The Great One fought in those wars, not as a destroyer but as a protector. She tried to save what could be saved." The Kian elder paused and looked directly at Juno. "Human hunter, you have great skill and courage, but you do not understand what you hunt. The Great One is not your enemy. She's a treasure beyond price, a living library of all the knowledge that was lost in the wars." Juno felt his certainty beginning to waver. Everything he had been told about his mission was being challenged by this alien's words. But he had his orders, and the deaths of 50 humans could not be ignored. "Even if what you say is true," he said, "she has killed our people. I have a duty to stop her." Nari nodded slowly. "I understand your duty, human. But perhaps there is another way. The Great One makes her home in the crystal caves of the highest peak. If you truly wish to understand her, you must listen with your heart as well as your mind." The Kian elder began to walk away, followed by her people. But she turned back one final time. "Be careful, Captain Juno. The Great One is not the only one who cries in the crystal caves. There are others who need protection more than she does." As the Kian disappeared into the rocky landscape, Juno stood in the valley trying to understand what he had just learned. His mission seemed much more complicated than he had originally thought. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "what if she's right? What if we're making a mistake?" Juno looked up at the mountains ahead, where the crystal formations continued their eternal song. "We'll find out soon enough. Let's continue to the dragon's lair." But as they climbed back into the hover scout, Juno could not shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew about dragons was about to change. The crystal caves appeared before them like a wound in the mountain itself. Captain Juno stood at the entrance, his plasma rifle ready in his hands. The opening was massive, easily large enough for a creature the size of a battleship to pass through. Strange blue light glowed from deep within the cave, casting eerie shadows on the rocky walls. Minho checked his equipment one final time. "The energy readings are off the charts, Captain. Whatever is in there, it's definitely not normal. Juno nodded and activated his armor's stealth mode. The advanced suit shifted color to match the rocky surroundings, making him nearly invisible. Stay close behind me. Keep your scanner running, but try not to make any noise. They stepped into the cave together. The temperature dropped immediately, and their breath formed small clouds in the cold air. The walls around them were not made of ordinary rock. Instead, they were covered in living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The crystals seemed to respond to their presence, glowing brighter as they passed. As they moved deeper into the cave system, Juno began to notice something strange. The walls were covered with symbols and markings that he did not recognize. They were carved into the crystal itself, creating patterns that seemed to tell stories. Some of the symbols looked like star maps. Others showed creatures from different worlds. "Captain," Minho whispered, pointing his scanner at the walls. "These markings are incredibly old. Some of them might be thousands of years old." Juno studied the symbols more closely. One section showed what looked like a great battle between ships in space. Another showed different alien species working together to build something massive. The artwork was beautiful but also sad, as if it was telling the story of something that had been lost forever. They continued deeper into the cave. The blue light grew stronger, and the crystals began to make soft musical sounds. The cave seemed to be alive, responding to their movement with waves of color and gentle melodies. It was both beautiful and frightening at the same time. After walking for nearly an hour, they entered a vast chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in crystals that sparkled like stars. In the center of the chamber was a massive pile of objects that glowed with inner light. But these were not the gold and jewels that dragons were supposed to collect. "Data crystals," Minho said in amazement. "Thousands of them, maybe millions." Juno approached the pile carefully. Each crystal was about the size of his fist and contained enough information to fill entire libraries. The dragon's hoard was not treasure in the traditional sense. It was knowledge, pure and simple. Information from civilizations that had been destroyed long ago. "This is incredible," Minho continued, scanning the crystals with his equipment. Some of these contain star charts to systems that no longer exist. Others have the complete histories of alien species. This is the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. But Juno was not looking at the crystals anymore. His attention had been caught by something else. A sound that did not belong in this place of ancient knowledge. It was soft and mournful, coming from somewhere deeper in the chamber. "Do you hear that?" he asked Minho. They both stopped and listened carefully. The sound came again, clearer this time. It was crying, not the crying of a human, but something similar. Something that spoke of hunger and loneliness and fear. Juno followed the sound toward the back of the chamber. There, hidden behind a wall of smaller crystals, he found something that changed everything he thought he knew about dragons. 3 young dragons lay, huddled together on a bed of soft crystal formations. They were much smaller than he had expected, no larger than horses. Their scales were soft and iridescent, shifting between colors like oil on water. They were beautiful creatures, but they were also clearly in distress, the smallest of the 3. A dragon with golden scales looked up at Juno with large, intelligent eyes. When it saw him, it made a soft sound that was unmistakably a cry for help. The other 2 dragons, one with silver scales and one with deep blue, moved closer to their sibling for comfort. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "these must be Yura's children." "But where is she?" Juno knelt down near the young dragons, being careful not to make any sudden movements. They did not seem afraid of him, which was strange. Instead, they looked at him with hope, as if they recognized him as someone who might be able to help them. The golden-scaled dragon made another soft sound, and Juno realized it was trying to communicate. The sound had a pattern to it, almost like language. He remembered what the Kion elder had said about dragons speaking the old tongue. "They're trying to tell us something," he said to Minho. "They're hungry, and they're alone." As if responding to his words, the 3 young dragons began to cry again. The sound was heartbreaking, filled with a sadness that seemed far too deep for such young creatures. Juno felt something change inside him as he listened to their cries. These were not the children of a monster. They were innocents, abandoned, and frightened. Whatever their mother had done, these young dragons had no part in it. They were just children who needed help. "Captain," Minho said, checking his scanner, "I'm detecting movement outside the cave. Something big is approaching." Juno stood up and readied his weapon. The moment he had been preparing for was finally here. The ancient dragon Yura was returning to her lair, and she would find a human hunter waiting for her. But as he looked down at the three young dragons, still crying softly for their mother, Juno felt doubt creeping into his heart. His mission was clear. He was supposed to kill the dragon. But what would happen to these children if he succeeded? The sound of massive wings echoed through the crystal chamber. Yura was coming home, and Juno would soon have to make the most important decision of his life. The crying of the young dragons continued, a sound that would haunt him no matter what choice he made. He gripped his plasma rifle tighter and waited for the ancient dragon to appear. Everything he had trained for led to this moment, but nothing had prepared him for the sound of dragon children crying in the darkness. The sound of massive wings grew louder as something enormous approached the crystal chamber. Captain Juno raised his plasma rifle and took aim at the entrance. Behind him, the three young dragons had stopped crying and were making excited chirping sounds. They knew their mother was coming home. The ancient dragon Yura entered the chamber like a living mountain. She was even larger than the intelligence reports had suggested. Her scales were deep purple, so dark they appeared black in the crystal light. Her eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of intelligence and ancient wisdom. When she saw Juno standing near her children, she did not attack immediately. Instead, she spoke. "Human hunter," she said in perfect human standard language. Her voice was deep and resonant, filling the entire chamber with sound. "You have come to kill me." Juno was shocked to hear her speak his language so clearly. He had expected to face a savage beast, not a creature that could communicate with perfect grammar and calm composure. "I have orders from King Timon," he said, keeping his weapon trained on her massive form. "You have killed 50 of our people. You have attacked our supply convoys. You are a threat to human civilization." Yura moved slowly across the chamber toward her children. Despite her enormous size, she was careful not to step on any of the data crystals scattered around the floor. "I am indeed responsible for those deaths, but do you know why I attacked your convoys?" "Because you are a predator," Juno replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Because you kill for pleasure." The ancient dragon lowered her great head toward her children. The three young dragons immediately moved to her, nuzzling against her neck and making happy sounds. It was clear that they loved their mother deeply and had been waiting for her return. "Look at my children, human," Yura said softly. "Look at them closely. What do you see?" Juno looked at the three young dragons. Now that their mother was here, he could see something he had missed before. They were thin, almost skeleton-like beneath their beautiful scales. They moved slowly, as if they did not have much energy. They were starving. "They are hungry," he said. "They are dying," Yura corrected him. "I am dying as well. The radiation from the ancient wars still burns in my blood. Every day I grow weaker. Every day my children waste away because I cannot hunt as I once did." Minho stepped forward, his scanner beeping softly. "Captain, I'm detecting high levels of radiation in her system. Levels that should have killed her years ago." Yura turned her attention to the human tech specialist. "Your machines speak truth, small one. I have been dying for 30 years. The weapons used in the Great Wars were designed to kill slowly, to cause maximum suffering. I am the last of my kind to survive their poison." "But why attack our convoys?" Juno asked. "Why not ask for help?" The ancient dragon made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was filled with sadness. "Ask for help? From the species that shoots first and asks questions later? From the people who send hunters to kill anything they do not understand?" Juno felt shame wash over him. She was right. Humans had a reputation throughout the galaxy for being quick to violence and slow to diplomacy. They had earned that reputation through centuries of conflicts with alien species. The supply convoys carried food, Yura continued. Food that my children needed to survive. I took what I needed and destroyed the rest to make it look like a simple attack. I hope your people would think I was just another mindless beast. But you killed 50 people, Juno said, Yura admitted. And I carry the weight of those deaths in my heart. Every life I took was a tragedy. But my children would have died without that food. Tell me, human hunter, what would you do if your children were starving? Juno had no answer. He knew that he would do anything to save innocent lives, even if it meant breaking laws or defying orders. The ancient dragon had been faced with an impossible choice, and she had chosen to save her children. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Yura settled down on the crystal floor, her massive form curling protectively around her 3 children. Because I am tired, human. Tired of running, tired of killing, tired of watching my children suffer. I am ready to die. But they are not? She gestured with one massive claw toward the data crystals that filled the chamber. Do you know what these contain? The complete histories of 47 civilizations. Star charts to peaceful worlds that your people have never discovered. Scientific knowledge that could advance your species by thousands of years. Art, music, literature, philosophy. All the wisdom of the galaxy's greatest minds. Minho was scanning the crystals with growing excitement. Captain, this is incredible. Some of these crystals contain information about faster-than-light travel methods we've never seen. Others have medical knowledge that could cure diseases we thought were incurable. My people were not warriors, Yura explained. We were guardians. We traveled the galaxy collecting knowledge, preserving the wisdom of dying civilizations. When the Great Wars came, we tried to save what we could. Most of my kind died protecting libraries and museums while warriors fought over territory. Juno lowered his weapon slightly. If you have all this knowledge, why don't you share it? Why don't you help us? Because I am dying, Yura said simply. And when I die, all of this knowledge dies with me. Dragons do not just collect information. We become part of it. The knowledge is stored in our minds, connected to our life force. When we die, the crystals become ordinary rock. The young dragons were listening to their mother's words with obvious understanding. They knew that their mother was explaining why she had to leave them. The smallest one, the golden-scaled dragon, made a soft sound of distress. There is another way, Yura said, looking directly at Juno. But it would require something that your species has never been good at. It would require trust. What kind of trust? Juno asked. Trust that not all aliens are your enemies. Trust that some things are more important than following orders. Trust that sometimes the right choice is not the easy choice. Juno understood what she was asking. She wanted him to spare her life, to help her and her children somehow. But he had orders. He had a duty to his king and his people. The deaths of 50 humans could not be ignored. I don't know if I can do that, he said honestly. Yura nodded slowly. I understand. You are a soldier. You follow orders. But look at my children one more time, human hunter. Look at them and tell me that their deaths will make the galaxy a better place. The 3 young dragons looked at Juno with their large, intelligent eyes. They were not begging for mercy. They were simply existing, trusting that the adults around them would make the right decisions about their future. For the first time in his career as a hunter, Juno found himself unable to pull the trigger. These creatures were not monsters. They were a family trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. And the knowledge they protected could benefit all of humanity. What do you want me to do? He asked. Yura smiled, an expression that looked strange on her dragon features but was unmistakably warm. Help me save my children. Help me save the knowledge. Help me prove that humans are capable of wisdom as well as warfare. The decision. That would change everything hung in the air between them, waiting for Juno to choose between duty and compassion. Captain Juno stood in the crystal chamber, his plasma rifle aimed at the ancient dragon Yura, The weapon felt heavier than it ever had before. Behind him, Minho was watching with tense anticipation. The three young dragons huddled closer to their mother, sensing the importance of this moment. "Captain," Minho's voice came through his unit, "I'm receiving messages from the royal fleet. King Timon is sending reinforcements. They'll be here in 6 hours." Juno's heart sank. 6 hours was not much time. If he failed to complete his mission, the king would simply send a larger force. They would bomb the entire mountain range from orbit, killing everything in the area. The ancient knowledge, the young dragons, even the peaceful Kion people would all be destroyed. "You see the problem, human hunter," Yura said softly. "If you kill me now, my children will die slowly of starvation. If you let me live, your people will come with bigger weapons and kill us all anyway." "There has to be another way," Juno said. Though he could not think of one, Yura lifted her great head and looked directly into his eyes. "There is. But it requires you to trust me completely, and it requires you to lie to your king." "I don't lie to my superiors," Juno said automatically. "Even if telling the truth means the death of innocents?" Yura asked. "Even if it means destroying knowledge that could help your people reach the stars?" Juno thought about the data crystals scattered around the chamber. Medical knowledge that could save lives, star charts to peaceful worlds, scientific discoveries that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. All of it would be lost if the royal fleet arrived. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Yura smiled again. "Help me fake my death. Make it look like you succeeded in your mission. Then help me and my children escape to a safe world where we can continue our work." "That's impossible," Juno said. "How can I fake the death of something as large as you?" "I have been collecting knowledge for centuries," Yura replied. "I know. Many secrets that your people have forgotten. There are devices among my collection that can create illusions, hide energy signatures, even transport matter across vast distances." She gestured toward a section of the chamber where strange crystalline devices were arranged on stone pedestals. These tools were created by the Zephyrians, a race of scientists who mastered the art of deception. They used them to hide their cities from invaders during the ancient wars. Minho approached one of the devices with his scanner. "Captain, this technology is incredible. It could create a holographic projection large enough to fool our sensors. And this one could transport organic matter through hyperspace." "But where would you go?" Juno asked. "The king's forces will search every system in this sector. There are worlds beyond your kingdom's reach," Yura said. "Peaceful planets where knowledge is valued above conquest. I have friends among the star peoples who would welcome my children and me." The plan was dangerous and complicated. If they were caught, Juno would be executed for treason. But if they succeeded, they could save an entire species and preserve knowledge that could benefit all of humanity. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "the moral argument aside, think about what we could learn from them. With their help, we could discover new technologies, new worlds, new ways of thinking about the universe." Juno looked at the three young dragons again. They were watching him with hope in their large eyes. They understood that their lives depended on his decision. The smallest one, the golden-scaled dragon, made a soft sound that seemed to say please. "If I help you," Juno said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that you won't attack human settlements again?" "You have my word," Yura replied. "And more than that, you have a logical argument. If we are safely hidden on a distant world, we will have no need to raid your convoys. My children will be fed and safe. The knowledge will be preserved. Everyone benefits." It was a reasonable argument. But Juno was still troubled by one thing. What about the 50 people who died? Their families deserve justice. Yura's expression became deeply sad. "I cannot bring them back. I can only promise that no more will die because of my actions, but I can offer something else. The medical knowledge in my collection could save thousands of lives. Advanced healing techniques that your doctors have never seen. Would that not be better justice than simply killing me?" Juno felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was being asked to make a choice that would affect the fate of an entire species. But he was also being asked to betray his orders and lie to his king. "I need time to think," he said. "Time is something we do not have," Yura replied. "Your reinforcements will arrive soon. We must act quickly or the opportunity will be lost." Forever, Minho stepped closer to Juno. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data from these crystals. The knowledge they contain could revolutionize human medicine, engineering, and space travel. We're talking about advances that could take us thousands of years to discover on our own. But I took an oath to serve my king and protect my people." Juno said, "And how does killing this dragon family protect your people?" Minho asked. "They're not a threat anymore. They're offering to share their knowledge with us. This could be the most important moment in human history." Juno looked around the crystal chamber one more time. The walls were covered with the histories of civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy. The data crystals contained the accumulated wisdom of 47 different species. The 3 young dragons represented the future of an ancient and noble race. Everything he had been taught about duty and following orders was being challenged by a simple question: what was the right thing to do? "If I help you," he said finally, "I want something in return." "Name it," Yura said immediately. "I want regular contact. I want to be able to visit you and learn from your knowledge. I want to be the bridge between your people and mine." Yura considered this request. "You would risk your career, your life, to maintain contact with us?" "Yes," Juno said without hesitation. "Because I believe this is bigger than following orders. This is about the future of both our species." The ancient dragon nodded slowly. "Very well. You will be welcome in our new home whenever you choose to visit. But understand that this path you choose will change you forever. You will no longer be just a hunter. You will become something new." Juno set down his plasma rifle and looked at the 3 young dragons. "Then let's get started. We have a death to fake and a family to save." As he spoke these words, Captain Juno felt something fundamental shift inside him. He was no longer just following orders. He was making a choice based on his own moral compass. It was the most human thing he had ever done. 6 months had passed since the official reports declared that Captain Juno had successfully eliminated the ancient dragon threat. The royal records showed that Yura had been killed in combat, her body destroyed by a plasma explosion that left no remains. King Timon had praised Juno's heroism and promoted him to the rank of commander, but the truth was far different. Commander Juno stood on the observation deck of Research Station Alpha, watching the 3 young dragons play in the artificial sunlight of the biodome. The station was hidden in a remote star system, far from the kingdom's borders. Officially, it was a deep space research facility studying stellar phenomena. In reality, it was a sanctuary for the most important family in the galaxy, Doyun. The golden-scaled dragon had grown significantly in the past 6 months. He was now the size of a small shuttle and could fly with surprising grace. His scales had developed a brilliant shine that caught the light beautifully. He was practicing aerial maneuvers with his siblings, diving and soaring through the artificial sky. Soman, the silver-scaled dragon, was smaller but incredibly intelligent. She had learned to speak human standard language within weeks of arriving at the station. She spent most of her time in the research labs, working with the human scientists to translate the ancient knowledge stored in the data crystals. Hyan-Wu, the blue-scaled dragon, was the most curious of the 3. He had formed a close friendship with several of the human children whose families worked at the station. It was not uncommon to see him playing games with them or helping them with their studies. "They're remarkable creatures," said Dr. Yunji, the chief linguist of the research team. She joined Juno at the observation window, carrying a tablet filled with translation work. "In 6 months, they've helped us unlock more knowledge than we've discovered in decades." Juno smiled as he watched Doyun perform a complex aerial loop. "How is their mother doing?" "Much better," Yunji replied. "The medical treatments are working?" "The radiation levels in her system are dropping steadily. Dr. Kwan believes she could live for several more centuries if the healing continues." "That?" was the best news Juno had heard in months. When they had first arrived at the station, Yura had been so weak she could barely lift her head. The advanced medical technology at the research facility, combined with knowledge from the dragon crystals, had created treatments that were slowly purging the ancient poison from her system. And the knowledge transfer? Juno asked. Incredible, Yunji said with excitement. We've learned about 17 different methods of faster-than-light travel. Some of them are so advanced they could get us to the next galaxy in days rather than years. The medical discoveries alone could eliminate most human diseases. Through the window, Juno could see Dr. Kwan working with Soman in the research lab. The young dragon was demonstrating a healing technique that used sound waves to repair damaged tissue. Several human patients were being treated with methods. That would have seemed like magic just months ago. "Commander," came a voice from behind him. Juno turned to see Minho approaching with a communication device. "We're receiving a message from the Kion homeworld. Elder Nari wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with our research station." Juno was pleased but not surprised. The Kion people had been watching the station's activities with interest. They had been among the first to welcome the dragon family to their new home, seeing it as a sign that the galaxy was becoming a more peaceful place. "What else?" he asked, knowing that Minho had more news. "The Zephyrian Council has agreed to share their cloaking technology with us," Minho continued. "And the Centauri Alliance wants to establish a cultural exchange program. Word is spreading about what we're doing here." It was exactly what Juno had hoped for. The research station was becoming a meeting place for peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The dragon family's knowledge was opening doors to civilizations that had been hidden for centuries. "Commander Juno," came a familiar voice from the communication system. It was Yura speaking from her chamber deep within the station. "Could you please come to the main research lab? There's something I want to show you." Juno made his way through the station's corridors, passing human and alien researchers working together on various projects. The station had become a symbol of cooperation between species, proof that different forms of life could work together for the benefit of all. He found Yura in the main lab, surrounded by data crystals and holographic displays. Her health had improved dramatically, and her scales had regained their lustrous purple color. She was working with a team of human scientists to decode information about an ancient civilization called the Builders. "Juno," she said warmly, "I have discovered something that will interest you greatly." She gestured to a large holographic display showing a star map. The Builders were the first species to achieve true galactic civilization. They created a network of communication relays that connected every inhabited world in the galaxy. Most of those relays were destroyed in the ancient wars, but some still function. "What does that mean?" Juno asked. "It means we can make contact with peaceful civilizations on the other side of the galaxy," Yura explained. "Species that have been isolated for thousands of years. We can begin to rebuild the galactic community that was lost in the wars." The implications were staggering. If they could reestablish communication with distant worlds, they could create a new era of peace and cooperation. The galaxy could become united again, not through conquest, but through shared knowledge and mutual respect. "There's more," Yura continued. "The Builders left behind construction templates for space habitats that could house millions of people. With this technology, your people could build new homes among the stars without having to conquer other worlds." Juno felt a surge of hope. This was the future he had dreamed of when he first chose to spare the dragon family. A future where humanity could expand across the galaxy not as conquerors but as partners with other species. "How long before we can begin?" he asked. "The preparations are already underway," Yura said. "My children have been working with your engineers to modify the communication relays. We should be able to make our first contact within weeks." As if summoned by their conversation, the three young dragons entered the lab. They had grown not just in size but in wisdom and confidence. They moved with the grace of their mother, but also with the curiosity and adaptability they had learned from their human friends. "Uncle Juno," Soman said, using the title she had given. We have been learning about human history. Your species has made many mistakes, but you have also shown great capacity for growth and change. We want to help you become the species you are meant to be, Do-Yun added. Not just warriors, but explorers and teachers and friends to all the peoples of the galaxy. Yunwu nodded in agreement. The galaxy needs what humans can offer. Your adaptability, your creativity, your ability to bring different groups together. You could be the bridge between all the scattered civilizations. Juno felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for when he made his choice in the crystal caves. The young dragons were not just surviving. They were thriving, and they were helping humanity become something better than it had been before. Thank you, he said to all of them, for trusting me, for giving me the chance to be part of something greater than myself. Yura smiled with obvious pride. You made the hardest choice a soldier can make. You chose compassion over orders, wisdom over duty. That is the most human thing of all. As the months passed, Research Station Alpha became the center of a new galactic renaissance. Species that had been enemies for centuries began to work together. Technologies that had been lost in the ancient wars were rediscovered and improved. The galaxy began to heal from the wounds of its violent past, and at the center of it all was the unlikely alliance between a human commander and a dragon family, proving that sometimes the most important victories are won not through battle but through the courage to choose understanding over fear. The crying of the dragon hatchlings had led to their salvation. But more than that, it had led to the salvation of an entire galaxy that was finally learning to live in peace.